Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Araceli, aka Chelys, and today on Chelys Mental Wealth, I'm going to be having a discussion with Dr. Christine about autism. So I really wanted to make a video as to what her experience has been working with that population and what her perspectives are with just the ins and outs, the barriers, what she's encountered, what she would like to see in the system. Hopefully us putting that information out there, someone can hear and can make these changes, and we can all make a change together with these implement changes. So can you let us know, Christine, what your occupation was in regards to working with that population, what you did, the ages and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I've been working with kids on the spectrum for 8 years, I want to say, here at Real Connections. So I am now a clinical psychologist, so I do a lot of the assessment for kids on the spectrum and then also play therapy with parents. I also do workshops for parents who have recently received a diagnosis through Fiesta Educativa. Fiesta Educativa is an organization that has worked to give Latino families more information about autism in general, because there's a large discrepancy in the amount of Latinos serviced versus other ethnicities. The funding is really significantly different. So they found that white kids had a $7,000 difference per child.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's $12,000 per, and I'm not I'm not too sure about the numbers right now, but when I heard this in a conference, it was $12,000 per Caucasian child, and then it was $7,000 for African American, and then 5 or 6 for Latino. But those were the numbers roughly. Organizations like Fiesta Educativa have been so helpful in providing that kind of information for the Latino families.
Wow. Because that's one of the main reasons too why I wanted to speak to Christine is because I've seen working in the field how a lot more Latinos are getting their kids diagnosed with autism, and it's just becoming way more common. And I've noticed patterns where just don't understand. It's new. Yeah. And I think also too, and this is just my theory, is that I feel like autism has been in our family for a while, or at least generations, but we just never really paid attention. Right. And what I've seen is a lot of the times kids who exhibit autism, parents don't know how to handle that, and they result to cultural patterns of hitting, disciplining, and they don't understand it, and it's unfortunate, but at the same time they don't know because it's new. It's very new for us within our culture, and we're finally getting services, and families are understanding the benefits of having specialists or having a therapist or having services from regional center, things like that parents don't know that regional center exists, and and how you can apply, and it's a process. And so what have you figured out throughout being in that population, the barriers between working with families right now and the system?
For a lot, it's the knowledge, you said. Usually the people that have most access to families tend to be pediatricians. So there's been a lot of lobbying and legislation put in place so that they are doing what's called the ASQ. So they're doing just basic developmental assessments, and then if they're not hitting everything that they're supposed to be hitting, then they'll refer them to the regional center. So the regional center will provide services if there's a 33% delay or more per domain. So I feel like that has helped, but I think the biggest barrier is the early access, because that can have such a helpful impact on the families and the children.
Yeah, from a little bit that I've known about with autism, when you first catch it, if you catch it early, I know that the symptoms are going to be at less extreme when they get older, because you're able to implement the intervention coping skills and implement what you need to do in order for you to help your child be more successful in society. For me, I've always felt like autism and ADHD is a gift, because I've seen kids and I see how they are, and I see how impeccable they are in certain areas that we are not, as not having autism or ADHD, and I feel like it's a gift. I'm just oh my goodness, you know how to do this? I wouldn't even be able to do that. Maybe we start changing that narrative, and that's what I'm going to try my hardest to do with my channel, is I'm going to keep saying it's a gift, and hopefully by saying that it can help parents see it in a different way. We have to change the way we see that diagnosis, because it'll help us empathize and kind of try different ways to help people who are in the spectrum. So I guess my question to you, in regards to the system, do you feel like there's still things that we need to do besides the income that they're not receiving? Do you think that that's the only kind of problem that we're kind of encountering in regards to services?
No.
I was like, it's not about just money. It's more. I was like, okay.
So I feel like the antiquated view of autism, so if we take a historical view of it, a lot of individuals with autism were hospitalized before, like a long time ago.
Okay. Well, they were probably part of that whole bad era when they were being experiments and all that stuff.
Yeah, and they were trying to figure out like what the cause of it was, why it happened. So one of the first theories was that it was refrigerator mothers. I don't know if you've heard that.
I think I have.
That like the mother wasn't loving enough and that's why the child couldn't attach. And then so it's been like this whole journey, and I think that right now there's a lot of autistic individual adults and YouTubers that exist that speak out about their experiences of autism and what that has felt like for them, and they advocate for their rights. So I think as a society, like you're saying, seeing it as a gift and really respecting the neurodiversity that happens in our brains is what's most needed right now. So the field of autism is almost like a separate field from the mental health field. It's its own thing. It feels like there's also a lot of money running through it, and so that is, the families are really open to being taken advantage of because the need is so high. And so I think societally we need to be more accepting, just so that it's not such a panic to receive the help that they need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of the time it feels like individuals who need the support don't have a lot of options. It's like, oh, you work with autism, that's perfect. And it's like, no, you don't know who I am. You don't know if I'm good. You don't know if I know anything, like question me. And I feel like it's because it's such a different specialty, and a lot of people are still afraid of it. And so I feel like we need to question that more, and we need more people that specialize in it, and more people that are really here to propel that population forward and respect who they are and give them options and choices of like who they want to be in this world. It's not just about all of the functional goals that we have for them. It's also about like bringing out their personality and letting them thrive as individuals. So I feel like I feel like there's a lot there for me because I've worked with so many families and clients, and I feel like the system is stacked against them so much of the time, and that can be really hard to watch.
I agree, because even me working, I've had a few clients that were diagnosed with autism, and I was part of that process where I had to help fill in and we had one by one. I said, and I feel like I don't think that if I would have done that, she would have ever really gotten the right help. I get supervised by my supervisor, and when I speak about certain diagnoses, they guide me, right? They tell me, it sounds like this, talk to the clinician, maybe they can talk to the school and see if they can do testing. So that's how we kind of problem solve, because the reality is certain interventions and coping skills don't work with people that are in the spectrum. You really have to use very special, specific, or just different ones. It's not even just special, it's just different ones that are gonna work the way they work, how they do their things, how they do their routines, how they process things. So it's just a different approach that needs to be taught to you in a way of how to speak, and it's just different. It doesn't mean that they're less of. It's just different. And I think that once we start to see how we can integrate those, like it's just like that's the thing for me. It's just like I hate the labels. It's like I wish labels just didn't exist.
But there are like 4 categories that need to be met for an individual with autism. Like part of it is communication, and then sensory processing, and then repetitive behaviors, and then it has to affect multiple domains of your life. So it has to affect occupational and home life. So like school and home.
Oh, so it needs to affect
So it needs to hit everything in order for you to be diagnosable.
I see.
So that's the thing. Like, I'll experience, like one thing I always say about kids on the spectrum is that I like working with them because they don't bullshit you, right?
They don't.
So it's just like,
they tell you how it is. They're pretty honest.
They're just like, so what time are you gonna leave though? Like, how long are you here for? Christina, it's almost 6:30. It's time for you to go home, And it's like, damn, like, why don't you like me? Like, what do I need to do? And so they make you, like, it has to be a very genuine relationship. And so that's why it's like such a cool job to work with them, because it's like, oh my God, I did it. Like, we're having a relationship right now, And they can, like, be excited about hanging out. And I know how hard I've had to work for that, to get them to where they're at, and to get them interested in somebody else,
Oh, wow.
And that's what that work is about. And that's why it's so great, because any kid can be polite to me and like play a game with me because they feel like that's my expectation. But an autistic kid is gonna be like, why? Like, I don't want to do it. I go away. I don't want to look at you. I don't want to be with you. Know, like they'll let you know. I just love that piece.
That's true. Is it possible for someone to really exhibit very strong or very minimal autistic, basically signs, and then them taper off as they're older?
I wouldn't say that they taper off, but I feel like you learn to adapt.
Oh.
Right? Like let's say like consequences and reward system work socially as well, right? So if you're noticing that every time you start engaging in repetitive behavior, you might find something adaptive that makes you stop doing that. So if my repetitive behavior is to like tap on this really loud, and I notice that when I hold a squishy ball, I don't tap as much, then I might just hold a squishy ball so that people don't look at me as much. You know, like you learn how to adapt, and I think we all do that. But it sounds like the challenges that came up might have been like for multiple reasons, you know, and so what would be beneficial is to get an assessment that would let you know like where you're at cognitively and if it could be a learning disorder. So for autism, it's called the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule. So you would want to be assessed for that. And
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that probably they try to self-diagnose. Don't ever self-diagnose. But other than that, I mean, is there anything that you would like for anyone else to know in regards to what we talked about with autism, barriers, the system? Because I know we kind of covered all three already. And I know that I already chimed in as to like my opinion and my experience with just working with the population and what I've experienced personally. Is there anything that you think we might have missed or you want to add that you want the community to know that would be beneficial?
Yeah, I just want to highlight the resources that are out there if you have even a suspicion of your child having the diagnosis of autism. It's really helpful to have the support, and the labels really suck, the label that's attached to the child.
But it helps with
so much with getting the services.
It does.
So I would just say if you have any questions, you reach out to the regional centers in your area. Those services are free and they will support you in getting the assessment completed. And so I think that that's like the most important piece for me, is just that the regional centers exist and you are able to get early intervention services even if you have a suspicion, and then it doesn't result in autism. Like your child might just have developmental delays. You can also receive the services from the regional center from ages 0 to 3 for early intervention. And then organizations like Fiesta Educativa that have free workshops for parents in English and Spanish for you to learn about what autism is, like socialization piece and how to help work with your child. All of those pieces are really important, and I just think it's important to have that information. There are free parent workshops also on a couple of sites. One is called Profectum. So they have a parent toolkit that's free that you can download with videos. There's the Autism Navigator website that has videos of how to do like play therapy and behavioral therapy with your child, or what those therapies look like if you're curious about like which direction you want to go. There's always a battle between receiving ABA or a more developmental approach like DIR floor time.
I've heard that before.
And I wouldn't say like, sorry, we got cut off.
Yes,
so I was saying that there's always been a battle between ABA and DIR floor time, or a more developmental and relational approach. So what I practice the more developmental, relational, and naturalistic behavioral approach. So that's more like I'm more interested in the relationship that I can develop with this child. I'm more interested in the child initiating engagement with me versus making eye contact with me constantly because I say eyes up. Like that's not the therapy that I'm interested in.
I'm glad I don't. Then I do your approach then. Then I do your approach.
Yeah.
Of like just because that's what I do from the start. I try to build a relationship with the family so I can build rapport and they feel comfortable with me.
Yeah. And then there's also a place for the behavioral services, I feel, because they're really helpful with the more functional goals, like being able to use a fork, being able to tie your shoe, being able to follow a routine. Like that's really helpful for that. And the developmental approaches tend to take a little bit longer with that kind of stuff. So I feel like there's a place for everything, and different families will have different fits. So it's just important to explore your options and to know that you are the one that gets to decide that. It's not your service coordinator from the regional center. It's not your insurance company. It's not anybody else. It's just you. Like you have the parent right, and there are a lot of people lobbying for you to have that right currently. Like we're always trying to increase parent choice, and I just think it's so hard when families get like bogged down with so many people's opinions. So it's really important to trust your parental intuition in general, because you know your child and you know your family, and you're gonna know what's gonna fit your system the best. So it's just important to find those people that can really be a part of your team and respect the authenticity that is your family. Like, you really want to hold on to that. So I would say that's
it's amazing, because sometimes you might get a professional that's like really, you know, it's just like, you know, like wants to change things, it goes this way, and it's okay, like I always say, to shop around or look around, interview, or look and see, maybe this would be a good fit. Gender sometimes is a big deal for people. Sometimes they say, I'd rather have a man, I'd rather have a woman. Sometimes it's age. You know, it all depends. But I completely agree with her in regards to regional center. I've worked with regional center when I worked with intellectually disabled adults, and I was able to work with service coordinators, and just the programs and the events that they have is really useful. Totally worth trying into looking into it. I mean, that's what it's there for. It's there. They get a lot of funding for regional center, okay, and that's what it's there for. And when we that's the reason why we want to talk about it, so that people know that those services are worth it, and that eventually even those services grow into with the child. Like when they become an adult, they have services like how I work with the intellectually disabled adults. There for them to be independent in the community on their own, despite them having a disability or a disorder. They're able to work into society and have their own jobs. I'm telling you, just the events in general. I remember I went to one and I was just like, oh, this is really nice. Like, they have a lot of good things, you know? And
and so a place that you can go to, even if you're not a client of the regional center, is the Family Resource Center that's attached to every regional center. Here in this area, we have the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. We also have the East LA Regional Center. And then we have the North LA Regional Center if you're in the Valley. And then Lanterman, which is in Koreatown, which is like its own thing.
And I know there's one all the way in the IE. One thing that I heard supposedly, I don't know if this is bad or not, but I heard that Pomona is a really good, out of all the offices, that Pomona is one of the best ones out of all of them. Like, I've heard people when they deal with regional center that Pomona has one of the best like offices, because you know, people compare about customer service and just staff and just things like that. They said that Pomona is one of the best. I don't know if that's really the truth. Maybe they would have been biased. I've never worked with any other regional center location besides the Pomona location. I never worked with LA. I never worked with all the other ones on this side, but I've heard a lot of good things about the Pomona. But I will say this, it's per area. So if you're closer to the Pomona area, then you're gonna get linked to that office. If you're more closer to that way, to LA, then automatically you're gonna get linked to that.
Yeah, and if you move in between, you'll also move regional centers. It's just important to know if your services can follow you throughout those moves.
And that's why I mentioned the IE, because if for any reason you're moving from LA to the Riverside area towards that direction, then you know that exists on that end too, and you guys can receive services. And I think that office extends all the way to like Lancaster and like it's towards that direction. So if you keep going all the way to Palm Springs, I think it reaches all the way to Palm Springs too. And I'm sure there's might be more towards that direction.
Yeah, there's 21 regional centers in California.
Yeah, so they're all over the place, and it's specifically to try to help support and educate and help intellectually disabled adults and children to just be successful in the community and live a normal life, because they deserve to have a job and do all that stuff. And so for me, it was fulfilling doing that. To end, I just hope that, you know, this encourages other people to not be scared. If, you know, your kid is exhibiting those signs, we're trying our hardest to change the narrative about how we see this diagnosis. We see it as a gift, and hopefully anybody else who has been diagnosed or might think that their child or family member or friend might be, it's a gift, and you can still be friends with them. You can still have a relationship with them. It's just going to be a little different, and it's a work in progress. And I hope that this information gives value to you. And I'm gonna put all the websites. I'm gonna get the websites from her so that everything's all down there. Please reach out to her if you have any questions in regards to autism, or if you want to receive services from her. She does have her private practice, and she does work full-time in a specific agency. I don't know if you want me to say what agency you work for. Do you want to say what agency?
Yeah, I work for Real Connections in Monrovia. So we are a DIR floor time agency.
Okay, so please reach out to her if you have any questions, or even just to connect with her if you want to just get to know her. Maybe she might be able to answer some questions that doesn't involve with like autism and the stuff that we spoke about, but you never know. She might link you with someone that she might know that might specialize in something that, you know, you couldn't find by just speaking to her. So thank you so much for being honest about this. We are going to do another video in regards to like kind of the bad stuff about what people need to be prepared for, whether you have been diagnosed with autism or you're a caregiver. And I think it's important that we have those serious conversations because we need to know that there's a good and the bad, and by us talking about the bad stuff, we're gonna be, hopefully we can change those bad things and in turn help the population in general, you know. But other than that, thank you so much for watching this video. Please do not forget to subscribe. I'm gonna leave her handle right here so you can visit her, you know, Instagram, and anything else that she gives me I'm gonna put down below so you can connect with her. And other than that, please comment down below if you have any questions, concerns. Did you go through the same thing? Have you gone through something? Like I said, please message her if you have any questions. She's a specialist in regards to like autism. She's the one that's been working with the autism population way longer than me. I've only worked very little bit here and there. I just know that working with children, that I've seen it more as a gift, and that's why I keep saying that. That's why I have that perspective in my mind, and I hope that we can change that in the future more so than not. And thank you again, Christina. I'm like Christine. I'm sorry for so nowadays.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
I think all of us should have a hobby of some kind. If they like to play, get them a good instrument and play. You don't have to try to make a living out of it, just play.